All right, everybody. So we're going to start the AMA, and thank you all for attending. We know it's not a super exciting time for the crypto market right now, but this AMA aims to answer your questions about the project. We will continue to build utility throughout the bear market. So we understand there's a lot of challenges out there, but we believe this is, again, a point in time like we've seen before. So we have today Garrett and Elliot should be joining soon as well. And we'll go ahead and start. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring you up so you can go ahead and ask. So let's start by having Elliot and Garrett introduce themselves in case you don't know them yet. So guys, if you want to go ahead.
Sure, I'll go ahead first. I'm Garrett Kinsman. You guys can all hear me okay? Just making sure I have a good connection.
We can hear you, Garrett.
Perfect. So I'm Garrett Kinsman, the co-founder of Nodle. I've been with Nodle since the beginning. Actually moved from India to co-found Nodle with Misha, who I've been working with for almost a decade now. And we met Elliot very early on as well and brought him on board as our CTO. So I'll let Elliot give his quick intro as well.
Yeah, so Elliot, CTO, originally from France, been with Nodle for the past basically 5 years, big into the DAO space, was CTO for company combination. So basically, I guess we can cover crypto, being crypto native. Yeah, so built the first version of the Nodle chain and lots of related systems, and now we have a wonderful team to help us. And today we are here to give you a progress update and answer any questions you may have at the same time. I guess that covers it.
Yeah, I know it's probably one of the most exciting times in crypto right now. So maybe you guys have some questions that you want to ask, and we'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, guys. So please raise your hand, and we'll bring you up to ask the question. So it looks. I'm also looking at. Okay, so there's somebody asking a question in Spanish, I believe. Unfortunately, that's not our forte. I think it's Martha. Yeah, Martha, if you want to, put it on Google Translate. I'm sorry, we do not speak Spanish. I get Portuguese, but I know it's quite different. Greg is asking about new interface. So, Greg, I don't know if you want to come up to state and ask the question. So I'm just assuming is about the app and what we have going on there right now. So.
In the meantime, we can also talk a little bit about smart missions, which is what's coming up next. We can't say a whole lot about it, but you've probably started to hear a bit about it on our social media and on Twitter. And the whole idea behind a smart mission is to take what we've built on our network and abstract it, which means that we can make our network fully programmable and allow other developers to start building really interesting applications on top of our network. So maybe Elliot, you can give some like a technical overview, and then I can give kind of some of the use cases around it.
So hey, I'm not gonna get too technical. The purpose of this is to make everybody understand, not make everybody fall asleep. So think of the Nodle Network, right? So far, it can do a few things, mainly locate assets and reward people in the process. Right, this is what it can do, but it does not generalize yet, meaning that it is tricky to support new use cases immediately. This is what smart missions are designed to solve, right? They're designed to allow us to make the network generalize and support more use cases faster, but, and most importantly, get third parties to build those use cases if they are interested, meaning builders, meaning developers, entrepreneurs, right, that might want to build atop the network. Happy to dive deeper into details of how it's gonna work and all those kind of things. If you guys have any questions on that, I guess I'm gonna hand off the mic to Garrett in the interest of time.
Yeah. So the idea with missions is, which is coming up, is the idea that you have all of these interesting sensors and features on your smartphone, imagine cameras and wireless radios and all other types of things, and we can actually make those programmable. So what we're focused on right now is just using Bluetooth and incentivizing a network using Bluetooth and making that programmable. So actually, how does someone talk to a coffee machine, or talk to a fridge, or talk to a sensor, or maybe talk to an existing device that's out there like an Apple AirTag? So missions allow us that full programmability that will actually be referenced on chain to allow people to build on top of our network, and we hope it'll expand upon beyond just using Bluetooth very shortly. So that's probably the most exciting thing. We don't have a whole lot to announce yet on it. It's just really, honestly, a lot of hard work and testing and architecting and building. But maybe we'll take a pause and see if anyone else has other questions for us, because I know it's totally wild and exciting time.
And Garrett, I think maybe it will be cool to cover as well, like who's going to be deploying the smart missions, right? So we are talking about the app versus, how you can actually be the builder on the side of smart missions.
Yep.
So can you guys just comment, Ellie, if you want to jump into, I think it would be important for people to understand where they can build these and how, and what kind of, background they have to have in order to be able to implement those.
Right. So smart missions. Smart missions have a similar positioning than smart contracts in many ways, right? So most non-technical users will not build missions themselves. They may use a third-party interface if they want to create missions and if somebody develop that interface. But their primary interaction with missions will be to actually be a participant, right? So let's say we have a coffee shop that decides to give away NFTs because you visit the coffee shop and you want to get free coffee. This is a way for you to interact with missions. Let's say you have a pet tracking company that wants you to help them locate lost dogs, right? You can participate in a mission for that and you'll be rewarded for it. Right? If you're a technical person, meaning that you can write code, then you can also build missions yourself. And we're going to have documentation, we're going to have templates, and we're going to have starters and many cool things on those lines in the next few months. And I hope this clarifies the picture.
Do we have any questions? Sorry, go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, and we can say kind of our first use case here. One of our first big customers is a company called Rule. And so our strategy has been work with a small number of enterprise customers that can give us feedback and try to break things and iterate really, really quickly and allow that to really perfect these APIs and our network as a whole until we really open it up and allow anyone just to play with it. So our first big customer is a company called Rule. They're an insurance provider in Europe. And the problem in Europe is there's a lot of carjackings. And while cars may get stolen here in the US, a lot of times they just end up in California, like in the Central Valley or in the central US. The problem with Europe is that the gangs are so organized that these vehicles will end up on a ship to Africa or to Eastern Europe or to Russia within hours. It's super, super organized. And so they need kind of a deterrence for that. And using our network and Bluetooth, as soon as something is stolen, they can send a request to our network to help try to locate one of these vehicles. And the idea is they put a little Bluetooth tag right in these vehicles. And so that's our first customer, and it's a big paying customer, which is really cool. If you look at some of the suspected revenues of other blockchains, we're talking ones that have huge market caps. This is, from what we understand, higher than a lot of the revenues that we're seeing on some of these other chains. So this is really one of the first big enterprise use cases that's deployed using a blockchain to create something that isn't DeFi. And so we think that's pretty significant in the world of blockchain, and we're excited to be a part of that. So that's pretty cool, and it's going to expand up to tens, probably hundreds of thousands of devices, and this is just the first customer. So our plan is through the next few months is really test that, get it working at scale, and then expand. And so we're really excited about other types of sensors and even kind of disposable stickers. So people are building disposable Bluetooth stickers in the hundreds of thousands and millions of units. We believe in a few years it'll be much more to locate and connect things like packages or shipping pallets So that's very exciting.
Garrett, can you also
Go
touch on the sustainability of the sticker? Because I know a lot of people might be wondering, like, if you're going to have all these stickers flying around, like, how do you do that? Is this sustainable? So can you touch on that as well?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting concept around the sustainability of a hyper-connected future. And so imagine the cost of a small computer will be less than $1, which means there's going to be billions, I believe trillions of these things everywhere. And these obviously are going to have an environmental impact, and they're going to be capturing data. So the first thing we have to worry about is making sure that there's controls on what type of data is collected. So as you walk down a street, say in New York City or in San Francisco, you're actually going to be walking within a giant computer. There's going to be sensors in the sidewalks, in packages, in buildings, in drones, aircraft, cell towers, vehicles, bicycles. I mean, everything is going to be hyper connected and capturing data. And so the first thing we have to do is make sure there's controls in place on the privacy impact of that. And that's where blockchain really excels, because you don't have to trust the largest advertising company in the world. You don't have to trust the largest electronics maker with very close ties to the Chinese government. You can trust the blockchain. You can have a decentralized roots of trust, which we think for IoT and sensors is super important. The second is just the fact that the demand for this type of data is going to accelerate the number of sensors being built. And so just the material waste that's going into these is going to be huge. We're looking at massive amounts of waste materials being used to manufacture these sensors. And so we have to make sure that we make sure that they're very biodegradable and environmentally friendly. And we're looking very closely at eco-friendly battery technology. So not using lithium or cobalt, but using zinc-based battery chemistry. And so we're in discussion with different manufacturers that are building these tags and building these batteries to make sure that they're eco-friendly. And we think within the next several years, we can actually get to the point of a fully biodegradable computer where the circuits, the battery, the adhesives, the waterproofing layers are fully biodegradable. And that's really interesting, where these chips just basically degrade back into sand over a period of time. So that's actually a pretty cool technology. And we think it's going to be really important for the future of connectedness, because in 10 years, these several billion sensors are going to be probably be obsolete, and then people are going to want to build more of these. So it's going to be very interesting and something that we're pretty passionate about.
So Garrett, one thing also, I think people might have a question on this. So we talk about, we know that Nodle is a multi-sided marketplace and there's a lot of things happening. So we talk about the sticker, being able to put the sticker to track things in the physical world and bring them, to the Web3 essentially. But a lot of people might have the app installed on their phone and they're trying to put it all together. So can we try to, explain like what's the role of the app, edge nodes, sticker, tracking, demand side? I know there's a lot to unpack there, but if we can take one at a time, and everybody that is in the audience, if you can please raise your hand, because we're trying to explain this as best as we can, because there's a lot of things happening at once. So if you and Elliot will try, would like to take a shot at that, we can then take questions if they have any.
Can you repeat the question very quickly, Carolina?
Sure. So essentially just trying to explain, like, a lot of people might have the app. We're also talking about the sticker. There's a demand side, there's smart missions. So if we can say, hey, if you have the app, essentially your edge node, and go from there and explain how things connect to each other and how they, essentially work together. The sticker, the app, the smart missions, all of that. If we can just give it a glimpse of each one, I think that would be helpful.
All right. You are taking me unprepared, but I'll do my best.
Sorry, curveball, AMA.
N'est-ce pas? So, hey, you are an edge node, you run the Nodle app, or you run an app powered by the Nodle SDK. Essentially, what the app does in a Nodle smart mission world is that it runs small pieces of code that we define, that we call missions. These will scan and attempt to connect to nearby IoT devices. Some of them may be the sticker, Some of them may be tags or beacons from companies integrating with Nodle. Okay. Once the edge node detects those, depending on the mission context, it might tag them with additional metadata. And then once that's done, it sends it up to a server, which will do the job that the company needs, meaning that if I'm a car tracking company, then I may want to send a notification to the car owner, right? And in exchange of that, in a smart mission world, you would also receive a payment. That's obviously another simplification, but I'm trying to simplify here. So yeah, let me know if you need more details.
I can take a crack at it too. Essentially, by running the Nodle app or an other app with our SDK installed, you're becoming part of a network. You're helping create coverage in a decentralized network of smartphones. So that's kind of the simplest way to think about it, is by running the Nodle app, earning crypto on your phone, you're getting paid in Nodle Cash to help deploy a Bluetooth network. And now your phone is going to securely connect and locate nearby sensors and smart devices for the owner of those devices. So that's kind of how we like to think about things.
Yeah, so the owner of these devices could be the smart mission builder, correct, Garrett?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so
so
what we're
Go ahead.
And so what we're moving towards is really thinking about Nodle as a protocol, because you've got huge companies today. You've got Apple, which is building the Find My. You've got companies like Samsung, which are building a similar network, but they don't have a way to interact securely with enterprise devices. They don't have network programmability, and it's fully centralized. And so what we're doing is we're building essentially a protocol that we're open sourcing and working to get other people to use, so that we want to become the default solution for these big players to use when connecting and building out types of networks. So there's still a lot of work to do, but we think we have a good crack at it because we've been doing this stuff longer than pretty much everyone else.
Yeah, I'm really excited about some of the use cases that have been put out. Some of them, enterprise grade, but also as you roll out to your regular business owner. We talk a lot about proof of participation, Elliot, and other things. So if you guys want to cover some other use cases, I think that would be helpful for people to grasp.
Right. Yeah. So obviously there are I don't want to say boring, but the normal enterprise use cases that are centered around finding a state or managing fleets of devices. But there's also some consumer-oriented use cases with missions, right? Because essentially, Nodle is the way to interact with the world around the smartphone. And so in this world, you can find many things, right? You could create location-enabled apps which say, hey, if you go to this location, you get this reward, for instance, right? This is basically what Pokemon Go has been doing. You could do that for commercial or marketing. So I gave the example of airdropping coffee rewards when you go to Starbucks or other stores. Not saying we're working with Starbucks, this is just an example. But this can also be extended to events. So something we've done in a Web2 at Nodle was that during the Blockchain Rio conference, people were actually getting a special Nodle NFT, and they could use it to get some free food or, yeah, I think it was free food at the stands. Well, now there's going to be a way to automate that through a smart mission, right? Which is, hey, if you can prove that you are the Blockchain Rio event, then I'm going to give you a free hamburger, type of thing. Obviously, there's way more use cases, and there's probably many things we're not thinking of, and that's the beauty of the system. I think there's some humility in saying, hey, truth is we don't know what people are going to build, and this system is going to be designed and is being designed to enable builders to build what they want within constraints. So this is similar to from smart contracts, right? Nobody predicted the creation of NFTs or DAOs, for instance, decentralized autonomous organizations, yet people did it. So that's the approach we're taking.
Thank you, Elliot. We also have a couple questions from the community. So Spaces is asking, is Nodle going to have a feature to provide close proximity messaging between nodes?
Not on the roadmap so far, from what I know.
I think it'd be cool though.
It would be cool.
We should do it.
Well, technically, this could be like, I would be tempted to say, hey, you could probably build it with a smart mission, but truth is, it might be playing with the limits of the system. Early on, it probably won't be possible, and maybe as we progress, there will be more possibility to do similar applications.
But I could say long term, yes. I mean, that's what got us into this whole thing originally, was just a decentralized messaging app. But we realized that a decentralized messaging app doesn't work without a financial incentive, without an incentive to keep this system running on your phone, and that there's not a lot of value in messages. Who wants to pay for a messaging app? So we need something else, and we found that IoT, that connectivity of sensors, could be extremely valuable and could create a lot of interest for people. So that's a good question. There's a few questions from Marta in Spanish, but thankfully we have a translate button here. One question was, how long can you mine in Spanish? And then the other one was, and what wallet does it work for? So how long can you mine? You can mine for as long as you want. I know I've had it on my phone for 4 years at least, so I've been mining Nodle Cash for a long time on my phone, and it goes right into my wallet. So you're earning the crypto, and it's one of the easiest ways that regular people can be onboarded onto crypto. There's probably there's several billion smartphones out there. I think there's more smartphones than there are people. It's right on 6 or 7 billion phones out there, and most of these people don't have crypto. There's probably 50 to 100 million unique crypto wallets out there, or crypto wallet users. And so we see Nodle as a really great way to onboard people to crypto. So and create real value with a phone. So you're not just dumping it into waste heat or staking something. It's actually building a network, and that network has real use. So good questions.
Guys, there's also a couple more questions on what will be the conditions to run a collator, and will staking be possible through the app?
Great. So collators, which are coming early next year, pending ledger upgrades. Conditions are gonna be, I don't want to say simple, but are gonna be simple to understand, maybe not simple to deploy. We are gonna require a minimum stake of 3 million Nodle for now, as a filter, right? Because we don't want many collators. Collators are really good to prevent censorship on the network, but they don't provide security guarantees. Polkadot provides the Nodle parachain with security guarantee. Hardware wise, I believe we have a hardware standard specification on documentation website. So let me pull that up. But it's gonna be a normal kind of beefed up server, but not too beefed up either. That should be sufficient and a good bandwidth.
So it's not going to run on your phone.
This is
it would be
correct.
really
Yeah.
cool in the future, though, to do it on your phone. But there's going to be quite a bit of work to do before you can make something like that run on your phone. Also, the phone gods, the powers that be, don't want you running a node on your phone. They don't want you to have
right?
good things.
A phone is not suitable to run a collator node or a blockchain node for what it's worth, right? If you want to run a full node on a blockchain, you need to download all the blockchain. This storage size is bigger than the average phone storage size anyways. Then performance-wise, you need to be online at all times with a stable address, which is not provided to you by a phone that is connected to a cellular network. Or if you do, this is very expensive. And computation-wise, if we double check the documentation, we are gonna recommend 4 cores, at least 6 gigs of RAM, and a few hundred gigabytes of SSD. Right? This is not a phone. This is a server. Or this is the laptop. So collectors are going to be very important to make sure that we produce blocks in a decentralized fashion. Then again, security will be provided by Polkadot. So there's not going to be strong rewarding mechanism either. Rewards are going to come from transaction fees and blocks, potentially separate incentive schemes for the first collectors, and that's going to start this year.
But I'd say in a decade, these things
will
are
be.
going to run on phones.
Let me finish, guys. The other question was, will you be able to stake on your phone? Probably not, because in terms of staking, you need to not mix. You need to make sure you're not mixing staking systems that are inflationary, that are designed to retain tokens, with consensus systems, right? A lot of layer one blockchains have an incentive to maintain their own security, like Solana, Ethereum, and as such, they ask users to stake lots of coins and they align lots of inflationary rewards, which have an economic impact on the token. Because Nodle is a pool cloud parachain, this is not necessary. This does not provide guarantees, additional guarantees. So as such, and as of now, we are not gonna support staking pools or delegation or nomination, as you may be familiar with it, right? It will be, if you stake tokens, you run a node. If you don't run a node, and you don't stake tokens. Maybe in the future it will be possible for people to come together. I'd be looking forward to some businesses setting up around those things, but this is not a focus, right? This is not going to be a protocol feature. This will be a separate company providing a separate service if this happens so far.
Yeah. And we made this decision to really just focus on our missions architecture, to keep the back end essentially as simple as possible and allow us just to build out missions. Now in the future, would we maybe integrate with a third party DeFi provider and allow that in our app? Maybe. But we really want to get missions out there and focus on the core protocol before we open up more of those other kind of DeFi-ish features. We want to be really focused.
The keyword here is maybe, right? Nodle is not a DeFi project. The purpose of Nodle is not to generate yield on tokens or to distribute so-called liquidity incentives and then disappear, as we've seen over the last few years, year or two. Nodle is a network that interacts with the real world. That's what the core team is focused on building. And the decision was to focus on those core features instead of quote unquote wasting time on DeFi-like features. If that makes sense.
We have a question from Satoshi Incognito.
Yeah. Go ahead, Satoshi. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. My main question comes around to tokenomics. I've been a big supporter of your guys' project for a long time. Really cool concept. With the current token price, it's really difficult to justify even the battery usage associated with using the application. Even with mining for years, going back to where you guys were on the Stellar blockchain. Mm-hmm. It's really, monetary value is pennies. Any plans to change the tokenomics with that in mind? And I know there's a lot of people who purchased in an early investor private sale price that's probably about 30 or 40x the current price. Anything to kind of modify the tokenomics so there's actually an incentive for people to invest in this product?
So
what do you think? Share if you want, or...
Oh, go for it. I was gonna add on mission tokenomics and other things, but go for it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Go ahead, Elliot, on the mission stuff.
So modifying tokenomics may mean many things, right? I guess the naive answer would be, hey, shouldn't the network give away more tokens? But if we do that, then giving away more tokens actually have a negative price impact. Because if you follow economic laws, if you flood the market with new assets or new currencies, this is called inflation, and usually if it deflates your currency. And so if this inflates your currency, and so its value go down, right? This is essentially what's happening today in the USA. Inflation makes the dollar worthless, as in worth spaceless, not worthless as a word.
I thought it was transitory.
No comment. Now, if we apply to Nodle, and as you are seeing, we're introducing something very new, right? We're introducing missions. Missions are a way to use the network for third parties and for people that want to use the network services. And this is our reply in terms of tokenomics, right? By deploying a mission, you are going to need to lock tokens. You're going to need to spend tokens to deploy it as well. And by interacting with missions, as in, if you want to track new devices, you will also have to spend more tokens. If I can do a parallel, this is very similar to what happens with Ethereum. And obviously look at the Ethereum tokenomics, right? I won't say this will be similar to Nodle, but there is some similarity. With Ethereum, you give away tokens for running nodes, which is what we do. And then you need to spend tokens to deploy and interact with smart contracts, which is what you'll need to do with smart missions, right? So the TLDR, now that I've given all this context, is, there are no plans to modify tokenomics in the sense of giving away more tokens or less tokens, because this is not effective, as we are seeing again today as well. But missions are a way to represent utility and to fuel that utility into the token. Because again, you need nodal tokens to use the missions and to deploy them and to interact with them. I hope that's clear. And Garrett, please feel free to add anything.
Yeah, I think that was better than what I would have said for sure. What creates value is getting customers and utility onto our network, and that's what we're super focused on. Now, once missions are live and we migrate our paying customers right now to missions, we'll certainly look and reevaluate and see what makes sense for users, because ultimately we want people to be mining and deploying network connectivity, but it has to come from real value. And historically, a lot of these networks that are incentivizing users, there was no core value. It was just kind of hype. So certainly once we deploy missions and have migrated our customers onto those missions, we'll look and say, hey, is this still the right rewards? And we can make a governance update accordingly. But the real focus is just building value with missions and getting those customers onto those missions. Does that answer your question?
And just to add, maybe another angle to Satoshi to think about is that the network is just getting started, right? So it's incubation period still. As businesses and builders and everybody comes into the network, the token value over time will increase. As we've seen with other currencies, from back in the day, a lot of them weren't worth anything in the market. And then as time went by and utility was built. So I think it's important to focus on really what the utility is of the network over time and how that will present itself in the project. And it will be solving real world challenges. And there will be a better way of saying, hey, this is using battery. It doesn't in fact, uses less than any app you're running on your phone, including the social media ones that we tend to have. So I think that's an important thing to think about. Of course, I think for everybody involved in crypto is not the best, environment right now, as we all know. But maybe there's something to think about that, utility will be built. And that's really what, token holders and early investors can reap the benefits from. So we all hope this answers your question. But if not, please let us know.
Yeah, thank you for trying to address that. I guess you guys say that you're in an incubation kind of period. When is that going to end? I know I've been mining Nodle Cash since you guys were on the Stellar blockchain, and awesome. I guess it's been, basically 5 years that you guys have had a MVP. So, in terms of 5 years and you're still in incubation, when is the period where it's not considered an incubation? Because I think after 5 years and multiple different blockchains migrating between them, you guys have been around for quite a while. So kind of surprised to hear you saying you're in the incubation period.
Well, so let me clarify that, Garrett, 1 second.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that projects like this, will take 10 years. We don't know what's going to happen in 2. What I meant to say is not the incubation period like that, is more of that, smart missions will probably be deployed in Q1 or Q2. They'll bring huge utility to the network. It's not incubation in a sense that, as Garrett mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if you're on the call yet, is that there is already paying customers. There's Rule, which is attach beacons to their cars, and now they can track cars in Europe through the Nodle Network. So that is deployed, but we are still building. So incubation in a sense, not on a Web 2 sense, in a sense that we're still building a lot of features that are not yet released. And this will be rolled out, if that makes sense. But I'll let Garrett chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I would say and the reason that we didn't list in 2017 was we really wanted to prove that the network worked and that there were customers and that we could prove out that things were functioning as we wished. And that's why we waited until 2019 to even really start moving to Polkadot and issuing our token out. And you could certainly make arguments that we should have done it sooner. But we wanted to make sure things were working. In terms of when are we going to really open up and start taking on more customers? That's going to be in next year. We've already lined up several really large, big enterprises that want to use our network. Think of all the people deploying all of these sensors and Bluetooth stickers. So I would say kind of that tipping point is when we start to onboard real customers into the mission architecture, into a smart mission. So we have, say, a logistics customer, and when they're deploying their thousands or hundreds of thousands of Bluetooth devices, and it's interacting directly with the mission, I see that kind of as the tipping point, and we're targeting early next year for that. Now, things historically always take a bit longer, but also keep in mind that there's not really that many enterprises that are using blockchain today. A lot of people say they're using it, but outside of DeFi, there's very, very few true use cases for crypto and blockchain, for enterprise at least. And so we feel that Nodle is one of the really early ones.
And maybe double check the time it took other networks to see some form of meaningful adoption, right? Solana didn't take less than a year to reach where they were, right? They were years, that's it. I think Polkadot took about 4 to 5 years to be deployed, and version 1 is not fully released yet, right? So 4 to 5 years is actually not so huge. 4 to 5 years is probably a good time to reach some form of V1. And we do think that once missions are deployed, we'd have delivered, let's call it Nodle V1, right? And if you put it in parallel with all the rest of the network, I could say Terra as well, but Terra is a terrible example right now. Look, again, Polkadot or the parachains, Solana, look at Ethereum, look at all these networks where they took many years to go where they are today. So Rome wasn't built in a day is a sentence that comes to mind. And on our side, we keep building. And hopefully Nodle V1 will be available soon with missions, and hopefully people will love it.
Satoshi, is your question answered? Do you have any more questions for the team? Anybody else that wants to join and ask a question as well?
Thanks for answering. Appreciate things do take time. I'm really excited about missions and all that. It sounds like you guys have a pretty strong enterprise focus. That's really promising to hear. You guys have some potential enterprise organizations to onboard. Is it safe to assume that's kind of the focus of the chain is enterprise adoption to kind of bring it into the mainstream? Obviously for them, a chance to make money. I know a lot of the early investors, who have sunk thousands of dollars in, now their investment's worth, $20, $30. Is the main kind of, focus now rather than the day-to-day users like myself to kind of focus towards enterprise clients so that they can actually monetize the network and not lose money?
So think about what we're doing as a protocol. The kind of the low-hanging fruit for monetizing that protocol we see as enterprise, but ultimately we see a lot of consumer applications too. I think ultimately, if you're incentivizing a smartphone network to do things, you need to have consumers involved. You need them to opt in, but the ultimate value from that network in the short term will most likely come from enterprises. This will be a big company that's shipping vegetables or cold chain or medicines, and they want to monitor the temperature. This is just kind of what industries are out there now that have a need and a direct desire. But ultimately, is there a market for consumers to play games and incentivize a network through playing a game? Yes, most likely. We're in discussion with some companies right now that once we can talk about them, and if everything goes through, I mean, it's going to blow your mind about what you can do with a smartphone and a bunch of incentivized users. So don't think of missions just as a Bluetooth network. Think of it as incentivizing smartphones to be fully programmable, incentivizing a community of phones to be programmable. And that's a fundamental shift in how we think about mobile computing. And we think that can be really exciting. I also want to touch on what you mentioned to Satoshi about energy on your phone. And that's a really interesting issue is there's a huge tie between internet and energy. And I think a lot of people haven't quite explored this yet, this idea of the kind of megabits per milliwatt seconds. And when we're thinking about really tiny electronics, a lot of times we're measuring the power consumption is much more important than the data consumption, how much the data costs. And in terms of movement of data, in terms of megabits per milliwatt seconds, Nodle is by far the most efficient wireless network on Earth, if you compare it to cellular or other types of networks. And so this is where we think we have a huge, just from a physics standpoint, a major advantage over the rest of the connectivity technologies. But that's kind of yet to be seen. But I see the ultimate, like if we look back at Nodle in 10 years from now, we say where was the real advantage in what we're doing? I believe it can be distilled down to an advantage in megabits per milliwatt seconds. But that's just to be proven. So any other questions from the community? I mean, you guys are asking some good stuff so far.
We have some written questions as well.
Let's go to those as well. There is one from Alan. How and where to buy Nodle NFT and what benefit we get from it?
I don't think we're selling Nodle NFTs.
No, you have to
So in
earn
that
them
sense,
for now.
In that sense, I guess it answers the question. Right? Sometimes with our NFTs linked to marketing opportunities that are given out to users. As of now, they don't have related benefits. Maybe they will do one day. So I guess keep them warm. But there's no promises or no public discussions on this.
And think about an NFT. Like I'm a bit distraught with this idea of, hey, you have a picture of a monkey and that's the NFT. But think of an NFT as a way to program reality. That's where, to me, it gets really interesting. So what we're programming into missions is the idea that you can incentivize a user to do something, and then as a reward, they can get an NFT. So maybe, hey, go to a music event, you get an NFT. And then this NFT can actually do things. So I really love the idea of using an NFT to like unlock a door. Or wouldn't it be cool if like when you rent, I'm always trying to borrow my friend's Tesla because they're really fun to drive. But just the process of like giving me the key and then having it work, or me installing an app and then having my app, like it's just painful. And so wouldn't it be cool if I could take a car key for an electric car and my friend could just send it to me, like they could send an NFT. And then I could use that NFT to unlock a car and drive it. And then my friend could revoke it after a certain period of time. And today, like, there's not really many people thinking about this, certainly implementing it. And so we want to build kind of a programmable layer for reality that, for example, if you have an NFT, maybe, you should be able to open a door or unlock a vehicle or access a secret bar. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do when you quite literally link Web3 with the physical world. And that's what we're doing right now with Bluetooth. And we hope to open that up to other types of features that are on your phone as well. So that's going to be really interesting. So for now, short story, just be patient. All of you who participated in the crowd loan, and then on, we'll be some of the first to get these cool NFTs. But ultimately, we want to make them programmable so that people can do cool stuff with them.
Alan, I hope this answers your question. If not, if you have any more, let us know. We can bring you to stage. Anybody else has a question? Satoshi, I see that you're unmuted, so maybe you have another one as well.
Yeah, it's probably kind of corresponds to missions, but I've read many versions of your guys' white paper. At one point, you guys had in there a section for proof of location, which
Right.
sounded like a pretty cool concept to me. Obviously, a trustless way to verify your location is something that doesn't exist, geo-spoofing and all that kind of stuff. Is that something that's still kind of in the cards for you? Is that been incorporated into missions? I don't know if that's something you can elaborate on.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. Because I can say there's a lot to unwrap, actually. So first, white paper. There's gonna be at some point a paper on missions with more details. It's gonna be a technical paper. So if you're hungry for more technical details, hangs on, there's something coming.
And you can read the Whisper.
ETA to be defined. You
Read
could
the
also read
Whisper
the
protocol
protocol, but it's slightly unrelated. Now let's talk of proof location itself. When we design missions, I asked myself the question of, should we're gonna call it a strong primitive of proof of something, right? Should I have a built-in feature called proof location, proof participation, and proof of something else? And ultimately, as we went through this time, my answer was, well, maybe not. And so hear me out here. I'm not saying we're not going to do proof location. I'm saying there is no strong primitive of proof location because every proof location is different. Every client, customer, or mission developer is going to need to verify slightly different parameters, if that makes sense. So those slightly different parameters mean that every mission might have its own proof name, format, or protocol. Ultimately, missions will definitely support proof of location style use cases. In fact, as part of this paper, there are some that are covered in this way. Back to some of my examples, right? Going to a coffee and proving that you were at the coffee shop or at the event to get a special NFT is a form of proof of location. But again, it might be slightly different for every use case, so that's why the network is not going to focus on providing a proof of X, Y, or Z. It's going to provide you the tools to build those proofs. It's going to later provide you reference implementations. And then as a developer, you'll be able to use them and filter for exactly what you want. Now, maybe, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Elliot.
I was actually just going to ask if that was clear or if we needed any clarification, because I understand it might be deep on you.
And I can elaborate too a little bit. Maybe so everyone might have their own way of prove. So Nodle's really good at proving an interaction took place. So say you have a bunch of smartphones, and we can prove very cryptographically to NSA spec that a bunch of people interacted with each other and make it really hard to fake that. Now, can we prove that all those phones are real and all those phones are in that exact location? That's really hard. And so what we want to do is open up into missions to allow anyone to define their level of acceptedness to generate this proof. So maybe they rely on Google location, or maybe they want to rely on cellular data if the cell towers are accessible on the phone. But also other features are going to be opened up on smartphones that will allow people to build other types of proof interaction. So for example, if smartphones start supporting Starlink, I believe Starlink beacons are signed. So now you could have essentially like GPS, but it's signed by the satellite. And maybe somebody would want to incorporate that into a proof and then generate that on our chain and then deploy that so other people could use it. That would be super valuable. So we want to kind of create the fundamentals for anyone to determine what they believe to be a proof of interaction. So if a business just wants to say, hey, we want to create a coupon for this location, we're fine just using GPS. They can do that. But if someone actually wants to prove that you were at a specific spot and it's life or death, they could program that into the chain as well. So we want to give people the choice, and we believe that programmability, that platformatization, if that's even a word, is going to create a lot more value in the long term for the ecosystem.
All right, guys, we have another speaker added as well, is YHGT. If you have a question, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a question. So, will there be a Nodle credit card in real life so we can like use Nodle in real life?
I would love that. I think we need more. Go ahead, Elliot. Elliot has probably the rational answer.
I mean, if somebody wants to build it, why not? We'll support them. As the car development company, I don't believe we have plans for this.
A
It's a
lot of
great idea, but
exchanges support it, I think.
yeah, exactly. Like some exchanges, people are paying with your crypto or other things. Right? Usually with our third parties. Really, our job is to focus on developing the protocol, its core features, marketing it really well, and finding people to join to join the ecosystem and help us build that together.
Yeah, and I would say if say a third party would make it really easy for us to press a button in an app and a nodal card shows up in your home address, like that would be really cool. Like I'm a huge fan of like one tap like actions, and so I think that would be awesome. But we're really trying very hard to be focused, and Elliot's very good at keeping us focused on just getting missions deployed, and then we can start to experiment with fun stuff. Like for example, for a while I wanted to build a way you do one tap in the app, and then a SIM card shows up on your phone. I always thought that would be really cool. But again, we need to just be focused and build and execute on missions, and then from there we can start to experiment with cool new features. So, yep, it's a good question.
All right, we have a couple more questions. The payroll one, is there a plan in the future to expand mining devices other than mobile devices? I think this is going back to when we talk about the base station, guys.
You want to answer, Elliot, or I can?
I kind of want to say yes and no. We have explorations in that field. It is not a strong focus as we speak, but we've been in talk with router manufacturers or manufacturer of devices for other projects that are interested in integrating Nodle as well to help benefit their customers. So nothing to announce, nothing planned the short term. But this is something we've been exploring, right? Maybe Garrett, you want to add something? Maybe you have.
Yeah, like think so. Once we migrate to missions, it's really think of the phone as just another device that executes the mission. And this sets us up really well for a future where there might not be smartphones. Like I think everything's going to go XR, like extended reality, or kind of a mix of VR and AR in the next decade. But also things like vehicles. I would love to run Nodal on a vehicle. My background is actually building connected vehicle technology. So I was working in India doing that. And I think it'd be awesome if cars like a Tesla could run a node. So yeah, but right now we're just focused on phones, like get missions running really well on phones, and then extend that to other types of devices. But missions will really allow it to run on all kinds of different things, because as long as the bare bones of the mission are completed, then that can unlock the reward.
Okay, we have one more question from Fernando. The application sometimes does not count the tokens. Is there a project to fix this, a bug? Where should I report this bug when it happens?
Did you reach out to the support email?
Yeah, so we have a support, Fernando, email. I believe it's support@nodle.com. And you can send any problems that you're having with the app there, and our team will do their best to answer you in a quick manner. So I hope that answers it. Guys, please raise your hands if you have any questions. If you don't want to talk, also drop it on the chat so we can read it out loud. We're getting towards the end of the AMA, so while we're waiting for questions, Elliot or Gary, would you like to make some final remarks or talk about something else that we haven't discussed?
No, I mean, I just wanted to say thanks everyone for joining, and we appreciate you guys continuing to run Nodal Cash and be nodes. We know that times are a little spicy these days, but we're definitely going to get through it, and we're going to build some cool stuff.
Any final questions for the team before we come to the end of the AMA? I think we're set, guys. Elliot, if you have any final remarks?
I mean, yeah, maybe now is a good time to thank everybody for joining the AMA, paying attention to the project. It's always great to be developing something that people are interested in. So I truly value that. Definitely very excited about missions. Obviously, well, I'm a technical person, right? And yeah, thanks again for the support.
Thanks, everybody. We'll do another AMA next month. If you have any questions, please reach out. Email support. If you have any issues with the app, do our best to get back to you fast. And thank you so much for being part of this community. We appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you.